Welcome to Learning Podcasts, ChatGPT for everyone. What ChatGPT actually is.
If ChatGPT has ever answered you with total confidence and then turned out to be wrong, the key lesson is not that it is useless. The key lesson is that it is not the tool most people think they are using.
Right. It is not a search engine with a chat box, and it is not a person on the other side of the screen. It is something stranger and more useful than both.
The most common mistake is opening ChatGPT with the Google mental model. You ask a question, you expect a lookup, and you judge the answer as if it came from a database.
And that feels reasonable because the interface looks like a question box. It invites the same habit.
Exactly. But a search engine mostly points you toward documents that already exist. ChatGPT composes a new answer in the moment. Sometimes that answer is grounded in tools, sources, or files you gave it. Sometimes it is just the model continuing the conversation in a plausible way.
That difference sounds small until the plausible answer is wrong.
Then it becomes the whole story.
The second mistake goes the other direction. Because ChatGPT writes in complete sentences, says things like "I think," and adapts to your tone, it can feel like a person.
Yeah, the politeness is doing a lot of work there.
But there is no little researcher sitting behind the screen deciding what they personally believe. There are no lived experiences, no private opinions, no memory of being embarrassed in a meeting.
Which is why the voice can be warm while the underlying process is still mechanical.
Exactly. Treating it as a person makes you overtrust the confidence. Treating it as a search engine makes you misunderstand where the answer came from.
Start with phone autocomplete. You type, "see you at," and your phone suggests noon, home, or the airport.
ChatGPT is that idea scaled up absurdly far.
Right. Instead of one boring word, it builds text step by step while tracking the conversation and patterns it learned from language.
So when it writes a paragraph, it is not pulling a finished paragraph out of a cabinet.
No, it is assembling one plausible next piece at a time.
Here is the part that surprises people. Prediction can look like intelligence when the patterns are rich enough.
Because language carries more than words. It carries sequence, intent, examples, assumptions, and the shape of an explanation.
Exactly. A recipe has ordered steps. A legal complaint has structure. A math explanation has a path from one idea to the next. A customer service apology has tone. If a model learns those patterns, it can produce something that feels like understanding.
And sometimes that feeling is earned. It can explain a concept clearly, rewrite a messy paragraph, compare options, or help you think through a plan.
The danger is that fluent wording can feel like verified knowledge. It sounds finished, even when it is only the most plausible continuation.
Use this mental model. ChatGPT is like a very fast, very well-read intern who writes beautifully, has seen a lot of examples, and is trying hard to be helpful.
I like that model, with one giant warning label.
The warning label is that the intern does not always know when they do not know. They may fill in a gap with something that sounds right because sounding right is close to the training signal.
That is the dangerous part. You get a confident paragraph instead of a nervous pause. The output is not announcing uncertainty in a different color.
Yeah, and a confident paragraph feels better than a nervous pause right up until you rely on it.
So why does it guess instead of just saying, "I do not know"?
Because the core skill is producing a useful continuation of the conversation. If your message points toward an answer-shaped response, the model is pulled toward answer-shaped text.
Even when the right response should be, "I cannot verify that"?
Right. It can say that, and good prompts can encourage that. Tools can also give it fresher or more concrete information. But the basic behavior is not a built-in truth meter that stops every sentence at the border of certainty.
Which means the user has to bring some judgment to the exchange.
Modern ChatGPT may have tools around the model, depending on the version and settings. It might search the web, read a file, look at an image, analyze data, or call some other capability.
That makes it more useful, but it does not turn the whole thing into a simple database.
Exactly. The tools can bring in evidence or raw material. the model still has to decide what to say about that material.
So the question becomes, what did it actually use? Did it have the document? Did it cite a real source? Did it infer something, or did it verify it?
That is the practical distinction. Tools improve the inputs. They do not eliminate the need to inspect the output.
I find it helpful to split ChatGPT tasks into 3 buckets. First, language tasks. Draft this email, summarize this page, rewrite this paragraph.
Those are usually the safest, because language is the thing the model is best at.
Second, thinking tasks. Help me compare options, make a plan, find holes in an argument. Those can be powerful, but you still own the decision.
And third, factual tasks. What happened? What is true? What source supports this? What should I do medically, legally, or financially?
That last bucket needs the most caution. The more the answer depends on facts outside the conversation, the more verification matters.
This is where the tool becomes less mysterious. If you are asking for 10 headline ideas for a birthday invitation, the cost of being wrong is basically 0.
Worst case, the invitation sounds a little too much like a corporate retreat.
You roll your eyes and ask for a better version. But if you are asking whether a medication interaction is safe or whether a clause in a contract protects you, the cost is very different.
Same interface, different stakes.
That is the rule of thumb. The higher the stakes and the more fact-dependent the answer, the less you should treat ChatGPT as the final authority.
Good use starts by giving it context. Not a giant essay every time, just the parts a helpful assistant would need.
Audience, goal, constraints, what you have already tried.
Right. Then you read the first response like a draft. What is useful? What is missing? What sounds generic? What needs evidence?
And then you steer. Make it shorter, be more direct, ask for the assumptions. Ask what would change the recommendation.
That steering is the skill. The first prompt matters, but the conversation matters more.
The healthiest posture is not suspicion and not blind trust. It is supervision.
Supervision is a good word. You can use the output, but you do not disappear from the process.
Exactly. Let ChatGPT do the fast drafting, the first pass structure, the comparison list, the explanation in plain English. Then you decide what survives.
That is less magical than the hype version.
It is, but it is also more useful. Magic encourages passivity. Supervision gives you leverage.
And the person with the context, the consequences, and the taste is still you.
Exactly. ChatGPT can move faster than you, but it cannot replace your responsibility for the result.
Once you see ChatGPT this way, the weird behavior becomes easier to predict. It is good at producing shaped language. It is uneven at knowing when the shape is unsupported.
That explains why it can write a beautiful paragraph about a book that does not exist.
Yep. Or give a confident explanation with one wrong premise hiding in the middle. Or summarize a document well, but smuggle in a detail from the surrounding conversation.
So the mental model is not trivia. It changes how you use the tool.
You stop asking, is ChatGPT smart or dumb? You start asking, what job am I giving it, and how will I check the result?
Practical rule: use ChatGPT freely for drafts, explanations, brainstorming, and exploring options. Slow down when facts, money, health, law, reputation, or other people are on the line.
That is not rejecting the tool. It is matching the checking to the risk.
Exactly. A calculator is powerful, but you still check the numbers you typed. ChatGPT is more flexible, so the check matters more.
The goal is not paranoia. It is knowing what kind of answer you are holding.
So ChatGPT is not Google, not a person, and not magic. It is a powerful language model wrapped in a chat interface, sometimes helped by tools, always shaped by the context you give it.
When you use it that way, the strengths become more useful and the failures become less surprising.
Next, we look directly at the most important failure mode: why ChatGPT sometimes makes things up and how to catch that before it matters.
That is the difference between being impressed and being prepared.
We will keep it practical: what the failure looks like, where it matters, and what to check before you trust it.
Thanks for listening to Learning Podcasts.